These are the U2's Five Nights at Freddy's flocked figurines, and today we're going to be making a stand out of them with papier-mâché. So I was thinking of creating a giant Freddy head and having his mouth open really wide like one of those circus or funhouse entrances with the clown, but instead of it being a door, it would be a little stand for the figurine. So the materials you're going to need for this today are as follows. Newspaper or brown packing paper. You'll need both full newspaper pages for the base and newspaper that's been cut into long strips for the actual papier-mâché part. You'll also need school glue. You could use white glue or clear glue. I used clear glue, but I've heard good things about the white glue as well. You need water, masking tape, 2 wooden kebab sticks, paint, paintbrush, foam core, crafting knife, paper, also black paper, but if you don't have black paper, you could always just color regular paper black, a glue gun, and markers. So the first thing we're gonna do is make an armature, which is basically just the base of your sculpture. It's really important to make your base as close to your final sculpture shape as possible because it's a little harder to add density and shape to the figure once we start on the papier-mâché. I'll be making my base with crumpled newspaper and masking tape. For the armature, I'm going to be making everything in parts and then taping it all together at the end. So how I go about this is I just crumple up newspaper into the shape that I'd like and completely cover it in tape. The tape can also help you better mold the paper to your desired shape. And now I'm going to go ahead and work on making his snout. Once all of that's sorted out, I'm going to basically wrap the whole thing in masking tape to make sure everything's secure. As you can see, the shape of this head is starting to come together nicely. Next thing I'm going to do is work on his lower jaw. To make the mouth wide enough to fit the figurine, I'm going to need some sort of support other than just the paper. This is where the wooden sticks come into place. I'm going to use the sharp end of the stick to puncture holes where the sticks will sit in the figure, so 1 hole on each side of the bottom jaw and 1 hole on each side of the bottom of the head. We're going to start by only fastening the sticks to the bottom jaw to make it easier to wrap. Once the sticks are stuck in place, you can also use a little bit of hot glue to make sure they're really in there. You can go ahead and begin to wrap them with the newspaper and tape just like the rest of the base. We're also just going to wrap tape across the back of the jaw as we want the front to remain hollow for the figurine. Next up we have Freddy's ears. Which I will attach the same way as the jaw via a wooden stick. And we're going to secure everything in place again with tape. And there we go, the base is finally done, and now we can move on to the fun part. And, well, the messy part, actually. So this is how we go about making the papier-mâché mixture. For this, you'll need school glue, water, and a bowl. I chose a pasta dish because the glue tends to splash around, and with a wider mouth, I hope that I can kind of keep some of that glue just falling back into the bowl. But that is not how things go, usually. It's gonna drip down the sides, and glue is really gonna get everywhere. You just kind of have to be prepared for that. As for measurements for the mixture, No, there's not really a right way or a wrong way to mix glue and water. I personally used a 1-to-1 ratio, so half a cup of glue and half a cup of water. But I've seen some recipes call for even more glue than water and even more water than glue, so it's really up to you. So you're just gonna add all the ingredients together and mix, and that is how you get your papier-mâché mixture. Next, all you have to do is cut out your strips of newspaper and dip it in the glue mixture. And when you take it out of the mixture, just hold it in between your fingers and slide your hand down the strip just to get all the extra glue off so it's not dripping all over the place. Then you just put it on your base and smooth it out. Repeat that until your entire armature is covered. I had to move all the figurines out of the splash zone for this. As much as you try to be careful, you're definitely gonna get glue and water all over the place. So make sure you're on a surface that's okay with that. Here's Freddy after the first round of papier-mâché. I'm just gonna dry him out for a bit and then go back in and do some details. You basically add details such as his nose and eyes by soaking a strip or two of newspaper in the glue mixture, and then you can kind of roll it into your desired shape. When the newspaper is completely soaked like that, it's very malleable, as you can see what I've done with the eyes and nose. We're also gonna put another flat layer of newspaper all over these details I've just created, just to secure it and make sure everything stays in place once it's dry. Before I dry it, I'm gonna smooth out any of the imperfections and lumps that I see, but honestly it's paper mache, so in my experience, unless you're using blended paper or plaster, it's very difficult to make a completely smooth surface. So don't be too upset if your Freddy's looking a little lumpy. It's how it is. So this is round 2 of drying. This time I added a fan because I used a lot of glue when I was creating the details, so it's gonna take a while to dry. In the meantime, I took some foam core and I'm gonna cut out the squares for Freddy's teeth. For the teeth, I just rounded the edges of my squares with a crafting knife and cut them down to the right length for his mouth. Okay guys, now we're on layer 3. Bear with me, this is quite a process, I know. Here we're just gonna take some Mod Podge just to seal it and smooth out some of those creases. So this is layer 3 done, and now we are completely drying it for layer 4, the final layer, which will be paint. Once it's completely dry, I'm gonna go in with my water-based acrylic and start to paint. Now that the coloring is done, I'm gonna go in with some black and gray paint and color in some detail, not only for some texture, just to make him look a little more worn and old, but also because paper mache, as I mentioned before, is a little lumpy. So I'm trying to add a little more intentional texture and shadow to try and distract from the unintentional texture. I'm also gonna cut some details in paper and put it on him, such as his eyes, his ears, and his eyebrows, just to give the final product more of a clean, polished look. For the mouth, I placed a sheet of paper in it to better measure the cutout that will be placed inside of it. I was thinking of having a black and white checkered background in the mouth as a nod to the Five Nights at Freddy's set design. Once that's all in place, I'm gonna go ahead and add Freddy's teeth with my hot glue gun. I'm also gonna add a little more paper mache on the bottom of the jaw where his teeth are, just so the teeth don't look like they're sitting on top of the jaw, but rather embedded in it. I'm also gonna be adding an LED light strip here to the inside of the mouth so that the character is very well lit and it does look a little more like a display. Our very last step here is to make Freddy's hat. I did this just by cutting out paper in various circles and cylinders and gluing it all together. To get the seamless look, I found it useful to really glob on hot glue inside the cylinder and put the lid on top of it and then turn the whole hat upside down so the glue drips onto the lid. Basically gluing it internally and not leaving anything for us to see on the outside. I also added a little tongue last minute for the same reason as I added the backlights. I just wanted it to be a more balanced look, and honestly, I think it did the trick. And there we go, that's your Freddy Fazbear figurine display.